Well, I'm just going to pause before I start because I think we're going out live on Periscope. And you'll all know what Periscope is. Put your hand up if you know what Periscope is. Put your hand up if you don't. Put your hand up if you don't really care, you just want somewhere to sit down for the next half an hour. Periscope is an app that you can get that works via Twitter. And it broadcasts live events, and you can store it for 24 hours. And then I think you can actually, if you pay, you can actually store it for longer. We're too mean to do that, so we just store it for 24 hours, then it decays automatically. We're all ready? Okay, right, well, good afternoon, and thank you very much, and thank you, everybody, for giving me the opportunity to come and talk about the Academy of Fabulous Stuff, which has become something of a social media phenomenon. I thought I'd start by just telling you why we started it, and then I'd talk a bit about how it's going, and then what we wanted to do with it, and then I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. I am not the great expert on social media, but we have used social media, I think, pretty effectively to make it work. I started the Academy of Fabulous Stuff, I like so many of these ideas, on the back of really what I thought was a disaster. I've had reservations for a long time, as many of you will know who followed the things that I write, and nhsmanagers.net, my regular e-letter, about the role of inspection in bringing quality to the health service. I used to teach on the Cabinet Office MBA course at Imperial College, and I learned very early on about the work of Edwards Deming, who was an interesting guy. He's actually a physicist, an American, who was sent to go to Japan by the Americans as part of the American reparations after the war. Japan, as you know, was hammered with 2 nuclear bombs and razed to the ground, and after the war, of course, the Americans had to decide what to do, and they had to rebuild Japan as part of the peace. And they sent a man called Edwards Deming to Japan, who was able to rebuild the Japanese agricultural economy within 5 years. As I say, he was a physicist, but fundamentally he was an analyst of data. He was much vaunted in Japan by Emperor Hirohito at the time, and when he was due to leave, Hirohito said, please don't leave, come and work with us in industry. And so Deming went to work with the Japanese car industry. And it was he who really started the whole Japanese approach to quality. We've since come to learn about the Japanese approach to quality with the Toyota and other derivatives of it, and lean and so on and so forth. But it was Edwards Deming who first decided it was the analysis of data that was the way forward to produce quality. And Edwards Deming said, if you inspect something and you turn up and you inspect and it's good, you've wasted your time. And if you turn up and it's bad, it's too late. What we need is some form of total quality management that ensures that what we do all the time works and is good quality. And of course we know the rest of the story. Japanese cars became preeminent throughout the post-war world. Whilst we were still inspecting our cars at British Leyland, we would drive the British Leyland car off to the production line, and a bloke called Harry would drive it round a test track, and he'd come back and he'd say, here, Jack, there's a rattle at the back. And total quality management at the time was, well, turn the radio up then, they'll never hear it. And that was our approach to quality. And then, of course, it was later on that we had a much different approach. And that was Edwards Deming that gave us that. And I was always been fascinated by Edwards Deming's approach to quality. And he went on to write something called the 13 Points of Management. It's worth Googling it. Edwards Deming, D-E-M-I-N-G, Edwards with an S. Edwards Deming, the 13 Points of Management. And number 3 on the 13 Points of Management was, do not rely on inspection to deliver your quality. So that really is stuck in the back of my mind, and I was always appalled that the NHS's approach to quality had ended up with, here we are, we've inspected hospitals for 16 years and we still can't decide whether we want soft touch, deep dive, collegiate, or whatever it is inspection. It costs nearly £500,000 to inspect a hospital, and we're really no further forward in producing quality hospitals. So that was really in the back of my mind. And then I'm going to tell you the story of a hospital. I won't name the hospital, but this is what made my mind up, galvanized me to do something. There was a hospital who got into terrible trouble with its chemotherapy targets. Now, some of you will know that there are targets in the delivery of the chemotherapy. I think it's 35 weeks and 64 weeks. This hospital got itself into terrible trouble with the delivery of those quality targets. And instead of trying to sort itself out, it hid its problems. And as a result, some patients died. Now, in fairness to the hospital, we don't know whether those patients died because they would have died anyway, they were very sick, or whether they died because they didn't get the chemotherapy. But nevertheless, they died, and we'll never know. And when the investigation took place, it resulted in the chief executive, who actually was a clinician, and a very rare clinician in management. We need to look after them because they are very important to the NHS. He resigned, the chairman resigned, and there was a police inquiry which is still ongoing. And when we looked at the reasons for it, why did they cover up the fact that they'd fallen behind with their chemotherapy? Why didn't they ask for help? Well, they covered it up because there was an inspection coming. The hospital was due to be inspected by the CQC. They were frightened of what was going to happen, and so they decided to cover it up. And as a result, some pretty tragic events took place, and that really made me stop in my tracks. I was going to say it really pissed me off, but I didn't really want to use bad language, but it really pissed me off. And so I thought, and I remember talking about it on a stage one day at an audience very much like this, and I said, you know, why don't we have somewhere where you can ring up, we could call it the Academy of Fabulous Stuff, and say, hey, we've got some problems with our chemotherapy, has anybody else got problems like we've got? And somebody would spin the Rolodex and say, yeah, there are 3 hospitals that have had trouble, ring them up and they'll help you with the problems. You say, thanks very much, put the phone down, go and see them and sort the problems out. The reason we can't do that, or we couldn't do that then, is because there is nowhere to share best practice. Now, for an organisation where people's lives depend on best practice, it seems crazy to me that you can't go somewhere and share best practice. In an organisation where we know we are going to get failures, we are in an organisation that doesn't want to learn from failure. It wants to hide it and cover it up because the costs of failure are too high. So I got off the stage and somebody came up to me and said, I like the idea of the Academy of Fabulous Stuff, why don't you do it? And I thought, do you know what? Why don't I do it? So here we are, a shed load of money later. We set up the Academy of Fabulous Stuff on the 14th of February this year, on Valentine's Day. We thought, what a great day to set it up. So we set it up on the 14th of February. And the idea was simple. We said to people, why don't you share the good stuff you're doing? We will be a repository. It's free. All you got to do is write 500 words and send us 3 photographs if you want to, and we will host it. Well, we set it up. Within a couple of months, we had the web developers on the phone saying, hey Roy, you need a bigger server because the server's melting, so I had to buy a bigger server. That's happened twice. We've had to get bigger server. Now, I now have a server as big as Milton Keynes, so we're good to go on the servers. And it was at that point that the fabulous Dr. Terry Porritt, who's the blonde, as we call her, down the front, who's giving us a wave, she took over the operation of it, and she invigilates all the uploads. We learned very soon that we couldn't actually trust people to upload stuff. because within about 3 weeks, Terry had a wonderful collection of penises and other photographs from men who thought they'd like to share their good stuff, which wasn't exactly our good stuff. So Terry now invigilates all the uploads, and we upload, it gets tagged. We are getting about just under 2,000 page views a day, and we've just been swamped by how successful it is. Because it's pretty obvious people want to share the good things they're doing. And of course, it's not just sharing the good things. We get searches, hundreds of searches every day, people looking for solutions to the problems that they've got. So that's how we started the Academy of Fabulous Stuff. I'm absolutely thrilled with the way that it's gone. Since then, I've taken a particular interest in the Vanguards, and I offered to help Sam Jones, who's the chief Vanguardista, and then we host some of the Vanguard stuff. We loaded up some Vanguard stuffs, and we had 9,000 page views on the Vanguard stuff. So it's hugely, hugely popular. We plan to have the International Academy of Fabulous Stuff, where we're going to start sharing international best practice. We want to try and raise some money so that we can have some bursaries to get people to go and study the good stuff and share good stuff. And on the 26th of November, we will be celebrating the awards, the Fabulous Stuff Awards in the East End of London, where we're going to say well done and thank you to the people who shared their best practice with us, and we had some fabulous stuff. And we've got what I call the fluffy end. We've got fluffy stuff where, you know, we've helped people with, Terry and I went to see a geriatric ward where they had tea parties and singing. But it wasn't just ordinary tea parties and singing. They did it with a twist. It's on the site. It's worth having a look if you're into dementia. They're doing some fantastic stuff with that, right through to the emergency care initiatives, where they're doing some really hardcore reorganization and flow calculations of good stuff. So it's an absolute university, a repository of the whole bandwidth of the kind of care that the NHS offers. How have we managed to get the following we've got? Well, social media. It's a website, but what I've learned is a website on its own is no good. You have to try and drive traffic to the website. And we've done that fundamentally through Twitter. We've driven it through my Twitter account, through Terry's Twitter account, through the Academy of Fabulous Stuff Twitter account, and through an enormous number of friends and associates like We Nurses and so on. We've had wonderful support from the other professions, the RCN, and all sorts of people who've supported us. When we tweet stuff, it gets retweeted. So we've driven it through Twitter. What we've learned is content is king. You've got to have good stuff. You've got to keep adding good stuff. We add 3 new shares a day. We could add more, but we do about 3 a day. And we could add a lot more. We're going to have to revise that because now we've got the momentum, people are sending us more and more good stuff. As far as Twitter is concerned, if you want to build a Twitter audience, we've learned the trick of that is you have to tweet at least 20 times a day. And the reason for that is that people look at their own timeline, generally, because we've got lots of data that bears this out. They look at the Twitter account on the bus or the train or wherever it was on the way to work. They look at it in their tea break. They look at it at lunchtime. They're looking at it again on the way home, and they look at it a lot in the evening. There's a lot of Twitter traffic in the evening. So we've learned that you have to retweet right throughout the day, and thank goodness for TweetDeck and Hootsuite. If you're in that line of business, then download those apps because they're free and you can schedule your tweets. We've learned to do that. We're about to start developing a presence on Facebook. We are on Facebook, 800 million worldwide. Look at Facebook. You haven't even touched that yet because simply we haven't had the staff to gear up and to be able to do it. So at the moment it's self-funded. I fund it. We haven't thought about crowdfunding. We might think about doing that. And the awards, we're very grateful to a number of people who've given us some grants to make the awards work. So that's really my story. It's a story of a commitment to the good stuff that's going on in the NHS, and just to be totally sick of people turning up at hospitals and saying that they're no good and they're not safe and all the rest of it, when fundamentally they are. It has a terrible impact on the morale of the people working in the organisations. It's extremely difficult to recruit to a hospital that's in special measures, because if people have the choice, they say, you know what, I'll go and work someplace else. I don't need to have all those people looking after my shoulder. So my own view is that I think the Care Quality Commission has been the most destructive force in NHS quality that we've had since 1948. I'm trying to redress the balance with the Academy of Fabulous Stuff. I think we're turning the tide. I think we're winning. By the number of page views we're getting, they're going up exponentially. We've gotten awards. I never thought that I would be standing here today, what is it, I don't know, 8 months after we started it in February, talking about what I think is, and I don't take the personal credit for it, we've got a lot of people who've helped us do it, what is probably now a social movement, and people are committed to helping us with a committee to sharing their best stuff. So that's my story, and I'm very happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
We haven't got a roaming mic, so if anyone wants to put their hands up and maybe use my lungs, not yours, we'll try and get a question to Roy. Any questions?
Yes, sir.
You said that there weren't enough places to share these sorts of things. Actually, in my experience, I thought there were too many places to share things. So there were NHS networks, there was the NHS Institute or modernisation.
Okay, let me just, I get that. Let me just summarise that. The question is, I said there wasn't a place where you could go and share best practice. You're saying, well, actually, there were a number of places, NHS networks and blah, 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 blah. And you're right. And I suppose, really, I spoke carelessly about that. I think it was disaggregated. And I don't think people knew, really, where they were. And it was hard to do. What I've done is I've made it easy to share good stuff. 500 words, 3 pictures. It's as easy as posting it on Facebook. We've made it easy to share the good stuff. So, yeah.
About the collaboration, so we're sharing across professions.
Yes, yes. Terry's saying she's absolutely right. She's coming to say that we're collaborating across professions.
So you're quite right. There are lots of places to share. There are lots of journals. But our following is multi-professional. So we have doctors, we have nurses, we have the allied health professionals who are saying to us, do you know what, we can't read. We collaborate with the Nursing Standard. We've shared great stuff from them. Royal College of Physicians. They wouldn't read those journals. They wouldn't see that great stuff. So because we're sharing from multi-professions, then I think we're getting a bigger spread. And I think that's the important thing. And that's the difference.
I think we become known. I think there is a novelty about what we do, and we've made it easy. That's what I've learned. It's got to be as easy as loading Facebook. Yes, Anne. My darling, I can't hear you. Did you say patience? Yeah, patience. Yes, well, of course, if it wasn't for patients, it would be very easy to run the health service. Yes, we do get patients across there, and we get the voluntary sector and the voluntary organisations who share best practice as well. So I think it's called a cross-platform or something, but it's all terribly horizontal, darling. But yes, you are right, we do get patients, and I get lots of patients write to me who say, you know, this is great stuff. That's the other thing. Since we've been doing this, I'm getting 200 emails a day. So if anybody would like to come and help me do my emails, it'd be very welcome. Right, who else we got? Yes?
If we help you with your emails, would you pay us?
Yes, you can come and help me with it. Who else? Yes, sir? You can share anything that we might regard as a good practice or something that you're proud of. I mean, we also have so it can be something as simple as a healthcare assistant who actually arranged for a dying patient to watch his football team on Sky Television and have his friends in to watch it with him, and he couldn't drink, so they made lager lollipops. We just kind of shared that because we thought, wow, it had a wear factor. And we've shared some really important tough stuff in changing the flow analysis in A&E, end of life care and everything. So it's right across the platform. Terry, who is as a doctorate in nursing and is a long time servant of the NHS, she acts as the sort of the gap that they have to go through. But fundamentally, we'll share anything if it's exciting, if it's good practice, and it's true. We also do something else I should have mentioned to you. We do the thing called the Academy on the Road, the Academy of Fabulous Stuff on the Road. So we will go to places and see their fabulous stuff. Last week we were in Milton Keynes, where Milton Keynes are doing an extremely interesting thing with medical education. They've zero-based the cost of medical education. They've reduced the time it takes to train a doctor to 4.5 years, and it's £35,000 a year. It's the cheapest course. It's properly invigilated by the university. There are no books. No one has to buy books. It's all a virtual library. A lot of the training is hand-on. They've absolutely turned the whole thing upside down. So we went and saw that. We went up to Northumberland to see the Tea Party. We went all the way to Northumberland to watch some people singing with some old people at a tea party, because what we've learned in people with dementia is people with dementia can often remember the words to a song where they can't remember large chunks of their life, and so that was worth sharing. So we went to look at that. We've been, I can't remember where. Oh, we went to Witness Rugby Football, where the local CCG have got the local Witness rugby football team alongside. Blue collar men are very hard to reach in terms of public health, but they're in love with their local rugby football team, and the rugby football team opened the doors. They get the rugby players to come in. They did prostate testing, they did health checks, they did cooking classes, they did reading, after school reading classes with the kids. So they've turned this it's a rugby league football team. Oh yes, they did flu jabs.
No, blood
Yes, they did flu jabs. And the other thing is, they did blood donating. All the football team did blood donating. They had people queuing to give blood. They collect blood by the gallon now because of the impact of this rugby league football team. Now, I mean, what a fantastic idea that is to share. Imagine what it would be like if Chelsea football team, no, not Chelsea, no, if a property like Arsenal was prepared to open its doors to involve the community in that way. So what we try and do is to plant the seeds of ideas that work and let them flourish elsewhere. And we've had, I know for a fact now that a lot of people have been up to Witness. In fact, they've been complaining that they're spending half their time showing visitors what they're doing. So they've shared this fabulous best practice. So that's the thing called, we do the Academy on the Road. So that's my weekend's gone. But it's worth it. It is the most goosebump thing I've ever done in the NHS, is to go and see how good people find the time and space to do great things. And it's really, really motivating for me. Yeah.
Roy, you're quite a busy guy. Why did you decide to do it yourself rather than have someone...
Why did I decide to do it?
Rather than take your idea forward?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I decided to do it because, to be honest, I wasn't sure that I'd get the support. I mean, don't misunderstand me, but I'm in the fortunate position where I could fund it, so I could do it. And I just thought, let's see if it works. I mean, and I had no idea that I would end up with this avalanche of a thing called the Academy of Fabulous Stuff. I mean, we're at the point now, I think the truth is, we're at a tipping point now where we're going to have to try and, become a proper organisation. So we are having some help from Deloitte, bless them if they're watching at Deloitte. They're helping to turn us into a social enterprise. I don't want it to be a commercial company, so we're going to be next year we'll be a social enterprise, and then we'll be able to take more people on and do more things. But I just I liked I don't know if you remember when any of you got a PPE here. Yeah, your degrees in PPE. You probably studied the anarcho-syndicalists which I thought was my favourite political movement. There are anarchists on the one hand who realised they wanted to do things differently, but they were syndicalists, and they realised on the other hand they had to syndicate what they were doing. And the Academy of Fabulous Stuff is a perfect example of anarcho-syndicalism at work. But I think we are going to have to get more people on board and do more, and I'm very happy to do it. If anybody wants to help, step up. Is that it? Okay, well, I'm just going to say, because I know we're periscoping, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody who's made the Academy of Fabulous Stuff what it is. Thank you for coming to listen. If you can help us, you'd be pushing an open door, because there is fabulous stuff going on in the NHS. It's not all gloom and doom. There are terrific people doing great stuff, and we should celebrate that, and we should help them move on and do even greater stuff. We are part of a great social movement, and thank you all very much. Thank you.